So let me see. Do you have screen share capabilities, Jason?
I do.
Okay, great. And like I said earlier, we're super excited to have you here with us, and take it away, Jason from Zoom.
Well, thank you, Ms. Chelsea. So before we start, my favorite day of the week is what day? Anybody got a guess?
Monday.
Not Monday.
Wednesday.
Friday.
I want to
Friday.
give you a hint.
Friday.
Friday, right? The reason
knew it.
why Friday is my favorite day of the week is because after today, it's the weekend. No more work, no more school. We can relax. So before we start, I'm a little shy, not really, but I love this song. And if all of you want to dance in some way to get me started, I'm going to play it, do anything that you want, go crazy. And then when we're done, I'll do the presentation. All right, here we go. Now keep in mind, it's Friday. Let's do this. See, I see River Rabbit, he's getting it. And Raquel and Isabella. Look at Joshua. Uh-oh. David, get it, buddy. All right, perfect. Now that we've done that, I'm ready to go. So everyone's awake, everyone's blood's pumping. Let's change back to my official Zoom background.
Right, let's rock and roll.
I love it. Thank you, buddy. Let's rock and roll.
Also, Jason, we do have polling questions that you and I discussed. If you want us to do that poll for you, or if you want to just keep on.
Let's actually do that before we start.
Okay, Nellie, kick the polls.
Okay.
Here we are.
All right, so first question, what is my favorite superhero? Captain America, Batman, Superman, or Iron Man? And what is my favorite color? Red, blue, or purple? Let's see. I see one person has voted. We have 2 votes. We have 18 of you to vote. So we're going to do this until all of you have voted. So go ahead and pick. And actually, let's relaunch that because someone finished it. Let's do that. So again, I'm going to start the voting over. Pick what you think my favorite superhero and my favorite color is.
Uh-oh. I don't see it on my screen. Does everybody see it on their screen?
Yes, we have it on our screen.
Oh, I don't.
I have it.
Yeah, because I relaunched it, Chelsea. All right, so I see one person has voted. Let's see. Oh, 3 people, 4. Keep them coming. We got 5. Let's get up to 18 votes. 7. We're going to do it for about 10, 15 more seconds.
Okay, Mr. Mobley, I finished.
All right, we're at 8. Let's see how many we get up to. We're almost there. A couple more votes, and then we're going to end it. All right, we're at 9, and 1 more, and then I'll go ahead and end that post. Let's see. All right, so now I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to share the results. So most people picked Batman, 75%. 25% picked Superman, and 13% picked Captain America. So raise your hand if you picked Captain America. All right. Raise your hand if you picked Batman. Now, those of you raise your hand if you picked Superman. The people that are raising their hand now are right. Superman is my favorite superhero. Good job. Now, favorite color, red, blue, purple. I'll go ahead and give you a hint. I wore my favorite color today. It is red. So the 25% of you that picked red, you guys are psychic because you're right. So excellent job. So now that we've got that icebreaker and you know a little bit about me, let me go ahead and share my screen. And here we are. So big thumbs up if you see my screen. All right. So today we're going to be talking about professional image virtual camp. And basically what I want to talk to you about is perfecting your elevator pitch. And we'll talk about what the elevator pitch is, tips for interviews, And I'm going to give you my top tips to really help you out, and then really how to use social media positively. And I'm going to share you a story that happened to me and how I got a job using social media. And then we'll have Q&A. So if you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. And if not, I'll cover the questions at the very end. But a little bit about me. Again, Jason Mobley. As Chelsea stated, I'm the Global Higher Education Solutions Lead at Zoom. What does that mean in that fancy title? It really means that I handle all colleges, universities, community colleges, and technical colleges across the entire world for Zoom. So all of these institutions are using Zoom to teach. They're using Zoom for meetings. They're using Zoom for interviews, like what you'll be doing. So I help them get it set up. And oh, you don't see my screen? 1 second, let me fix that. All right, so let's go here. 1 second. And let me re-share this out. All right, so now if I click here, now you should be seeing my screen, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so perfecting your elevator pitch. So what is an elevator pitch? Anybody got a good idea what an elevator pitch might be? And you definitely, Elizabeth, go ahead.
So we kind of talked about this at the last moment during school. Elevator pitch is just basically a fast introduction to yourself.
Perfect, Elizabeth, spot on. It's a fast introduction to yourself. Good job. So how do we perfect that? So an elevator pitch is really a great way to gain confidence in introducing yourself to hiring managers and company representatives. And your elevator pitch can be used during the job interview, especially when you're asked about yourself. Interviewers often begin with a question, tell me a little bit about yourself. So think of your elevator pitch as a super condensed version of your response to that request. So your elevator speech should be brief. I would restrict it to about 30 to 60 seconds. You do not need to include your entire work history. Obviously, with you guys being younger, you don't have a large work history, but your pitch should also be a short recap of who you are and what you do. Also, you need to be persuasive. Even though it's a short pitch, your elevator speech should be compelling enough to spark the listener's interest in the idea, organization, or even background. The other thing I would include in your elevator pitch is share your skills. Your elevator pitch should explain who you are and what qualifications and skills you have. I would try to focus on assets that add value. This is your chance to brag a little bit, and avoid sounding boastful, but do share what you bring to the table. So for example, if I'm giving you my elevator pitch about myself, I'm going to tell you why I know a lot about education, how I'm able to help higher ed institutions, and I would give examples. Even if you don't have a long work history, think about things like volunteer organizations that you've been in, things that you've done at your church, things that you've done in your school and different organizations. All those things show that you're involved, that you have a certain skill set to help them bring to the table. Now, lastly, practice makes perfect. And you'll hear me say this over and over again. Practice, practice, practice. The best way to feel comfortable about giving an elevator speech is to practice it until the speed and pitch come naturally without sounding robotic. So you'll get used to having the varying conversations as you practice doing so. The more you practice, the easier it will be to deliver when you have a networking event or a job interview. Practice giving your speech to a friend, or use Zoom and record it, and then go back and watch the recording. Now you see what other people can see about you. This will help you know whether you're keeping with a time limit and with a correct message. Also, additional elevator tips would be positive and flexible. You often aren't interviewing for a specific position when you deliver your pitch, so you want to appear open-minded and flexible. Don't lead with the stuff you'd rather be doing. For example, you don't want to travel a lot for work. That's completely legitimate, but you need to volunteer that information right off the bat. This is your chance to make a great first impression with your employer, and make sure you don't waste that. Ron, go ahead. Ron, you had your hand up. Did you have a question, sir?
You're on mute, Ron.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I don't have a question. I don't know how that's happening.
Oh, no worries.
Okay. All
Down
right.
at the reactions, I think you might have clicked raise hand, but hey, that's no problem, my friend.
No
The
worries.
next thing I would say is mention your goals. You don't need to be too specific. Oh, I changed the slide. You don't need to be too specific, but an overly targeted goal isn't really helpful, since your pitch will be used in many circumstances and with
What are you
really
doing?
many different types of people.
What am I doing?
Also, remember to say what you're looking for. For example, you might say a role in accounting, or an opportunity to apply my sales skills to a new market.
Yeah, on the iPad.
Let me mute
No.
Taylor there. There we go. Also, you could say, I want to be a team player in a technical field. So these are all ways to mention your goals. Third tip, know your audience and speak to them. In some cases, using jargon can be a powerful move. It demonstrates your industry knowledge, but be wary of using jargon during your elevator pitch, particularly if you're speaking to recruiters who might find the terms unfamiliar and a little off-putting. So keep it simple and focused. Lastly, have a resume ready. I would always go into an interview with a copy of your resume. If it's a job fair or even a professional networking event, it will demonstrate your enthusiasm and preparedness. The next tip I'd like to talk about is what not to say during your elevator pitch. Number one, do not speak too fast. Yes, you only have a short time to convey a lot of information, but don't try to fix this dilemma by talking very quickly. This will only make it hard for the listeners to absorb your message. Also, avoid rambling. This is why it's important to practice your elevator pitch. While you don't want to over rehearse and sound a little silted, you also don't want to have unfocused or unclear sentences in your pitch to get off track. So give the person you're talking to an opportunity to interject or even respond. Lastly, don't frown or speak in a monotone way. So here's one of the downsides to rehearsing. It can leave you more focused on remembering the exact words you want to use and less about how you carry yourself. So keep your energy high, confident, and enthusiastic. Now, I'll give you 2 examples of an elevator pitch, and this might help you write your own. Number one, I recently graduated from high school. I worked on the high school newspaper as a reporter and eventually as the editor of the art section. I'm looking for a job that will put my skills as a journalist to work. Again, short and simple. You gave them your goals, you gave them your skills, and you applied it to the job you're looking for. Here's a second example. I create illustrations for websites and brands. My passion is coming up with creative ways to express a message and drawing illustrations that people share on social media. So again, if you're artistic and you're looking to get a job as an animator, maybe for websites or something like that, example 2 would be a great pitch for you to adapt. So some key takeaways. Number one, keep it short and sweet. Your elevator pitch is your sales pitch. Be sure to deliver your message in 60 seconds or less. Number 2, focus on the essentials. Say who you are, what you do, and what you want to achieve. Number 3, be positive and persuasive. Number 1, your time is limited, so focus on what you do and not what you don't want to do. Be upbeat and flexible. And again, practice, practice, practice. Deliver your speech to a friend, record it, and make sure your message is clear. Any questions on elevator pitches before we move to the next subject? And if you have a question, feel free to unmute, and I'd love to hear your question. Anybody got a question? If not, let's move to tips for interviews. Here's the section I think you're really going to love. And I'm going to give you my top 10 tips. So tip number 1, start by researching the company and your interviewers. So understanding the key information about a company you're interviewing with can really help you go into your interview with confidence. Using the company's website, social media posts, and even recent press releases will provide a solid understanding of the company's goals and how your background makes you a great fit. For example, when I got a job at Zoom, I researched them on social media. I researched them on the website. I even researched them in news articles. And when I interviewed, I was able to use all that research and gave them examples. And this is what they said to me. It sounds like you already work here. So again, these are great examples of researching a company. Tip number 2, practice your answers to common interview questions. And I know you guys have done a lot of that, but prepare your answers to common questions. For example, tell me about yourself. Why are you interested in the role in the company? The idea here is to quickly communicate who you are and the value you will bring to the company and the role. Again, this is your personal elevator pitch. Tip number 3, reread the job description. You may want to print it out and begin underlining specific skills the employer is looking for. Then start thinking about examples from your past, maybe at school, volunteer work, and your current work experience that align with these requirements. Tip number 4, recruit a friend to practice answering questions. Actually practicing your answers out loud is an incredible, effective way to prepare. So say them to yourself and then ask a friend to help you run through the questions and answers. You'll find that you'll gain confidence and you'll get used to saying those words. Tip number 5, prepare a list of references. So your interviewers might require you to submit a list of references before or after your interview. Having a reference list prepared ahead of time can help you quickly complete this step. So can someone unmute and tell me what a reference is?
Teacher.
So you told me who a reference could be, but what exactly does the reference do?
It helps your employer understand how you were in the past.
Perfect.
Like
Great answer.
before you went to their company.
Perfect. 100% right. So references are people that have worked with you or seen you work that can speak to your work ethic, your skill set. These people really know you because maybe you worked with them or you worked for them. So that's a great example of references. All right. Tip number 6, be prepared with examples of your work. So during your interview, you'll be likely asked about specific work you've completed in relation to the position. So after reviewing the job description, think of the work you've done in past jobs, clubs, or volunteer positions that show you have the experience and success doing the work they require. All right, number 7, prepare smart questions for your interviewers. What I mean by that is interviews are two-way streets. Employers expect you to ask questions too, and they want to know what you're thinking seriously about when you would like to work here. So here are some questions you may want to consider asking your interviewers. And this typically happens after they've asked all the questions. They typically come back and say, what questions do you have for me? So here's some questions I would ask. Can you explain some of the day-to-day responsibilities this job entails? How would you describe the characteristics of someone who would succeed in the role? If I were in the position, how would my performance be measured and how often? Another question would be, what department does this team work with regularly? Another question would be, how do these departments typically collaborate? So again, you're trying to understand how the position works with other teams. And then lastly, what are the challenges you're currently facing in your role? Because again, if there are problems, they might share them with you, and these are things that you might be able to help them with. So again, make sure that you prepare your own questions for the interviewers. Tip number 8, plan your interview attire the night before. So if you're speaking to a recruiter before the interview, you can ask them about the dress code in the workplace and choose your outfit accordingly. If you don't have someone to ask, I always say, dress like you're going to church or graduation. So it's always better to overdress than to underdress. You know, for example, I would personally never go to an interview in a pair of jeans. I would always, if I'm a male, I'm wearing slacks and a polo, or slacks and a button up. Or if I want to take it all the way, slacks, a button up, a tie, maybe even a coat. Because again, you can never overdress. And again, with ladies, you can wear a dress, you can wear a business suit with a jacket. But again, you want to dress really nice because it's always great to make a great first impression. All right, tip number 9. Again, bring copies of your resume, a notebook, and a pen. So I typically recommend that you take at least 5 copies of your printed resume or on a clean paper in case you have multiple interviewers. Because again, one person might have the resume, but others might not, and you can quickly give them a copy. Highlight specific accomplishments on your copy that you can easily refer to and discuss. Make sure you bring a pen and a small notebook. Prepare to take notes, but not on a smartphone or an electronic device. Write information down so you can easily refer to these details in your follow-up thank you notes. Maintain eye contact as much as possible. Now, the one thing I just commented on is your thank you notes. Anytime I ever interview with someone, I always, typically a few hours later, I follow up with an interview, with an email and say, thank you for the interview today. I'm very excited with the possibility of joining your company, and I might leave them a nice little message. That extra touch goes a long way. All right, tip number 10, make a great first impression. Don't forget the little things. Shine your shoes, make sure your nails are clean, tidy, check your clothes for holes, stains, pet hair, loose threads. Again, I have dogs in my house, so I always use a lint roller on my clothes to make sure that they're clean. And then display confident body language and make sure that you smile the entire time. All right, the next subject matter, how to use social media properly. And I think this kind of goes 2 different ways. So first thing, tips for social media posting. Number 1, post thoughtfully. What I mean by that is when you make a post, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, doesn't matter. Always think about, if I write the post, what if the entire world could see your post? I would never write something that someone else read and would be like, I don't like that they wrote that, right? So when I write something, doesn't matter that I'm writing it just to my friends, and maybe it's private, I always write it if anyone could see it. Also, never use bad language in any post ever, right? Even though you could talk that way with your friends, maybe, we never want to do that because, again, I promise you, your interviewers are researching you. They're looking at your Facebook. They're looking at your Instagram. They're Googling your name. So this ties into the next point. Be conscious of your digital footprint. And I'm going to pause there for a second. Can someone tell me what a digital footprint is? So let me see. Alex, do you know what a digital footprint is?
I've been for a second.
I'm sorry. Were you talking to me, Mr. Mobley?
Yes, Alex, go ahead.
Okay, so let's see, a digital footprint.
So let me show you what a digital footprint is. If I were to bring in Google and I type in Alex Bartolo,
Yes.
and I start looking at things, it's going to find anytime you have Facebook, Instagram, maybe you're in the news somewhere, anything that's ever written about you is your digital footprint. So again, make sure that you look at your digital footprint and make sure that there's nothing out there that could shed a negative light on you.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah, thank you, Alex.
Sir, I have something to admit. I have every social media page.
So you're very involved on social media, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's great. That's great. Thank you. So another thing that I would bring up is that make sure you edit your privacy settings. So for example, on Facebook, make sure your social media accounts are only set to friends only and not public. Why? Because again, if everything you write is public, then they can find out everything about you. Companies will research you on the social media to determine who you are, what your personality is by your post. All right, so let me share you a story. I call it embracing the power of LinkedIn. So this is an example of my LinkedIn. I want to share with you an interesting story about this. So February last year, February 2020, I had never made a post on LinkedIn ever. I only had my picture, where I worked at, and my education, because that's what people do. In February of last year, I was setting up some phones as a test for Zoom phone. And I took a picture of it because it was really fascinating. And then I thought about it. I'm like, that doesn't really, that shouldn't go on my Facebook. My friends don't care about phones. So I posted it to LinkedIn and I said, easiest phone deployment ever. And then I hashtag Zoom phone. So the next day I woke up, I looked at the post. I had 5,000 views. The next day I had 10,000 views. And then I started seeing that it was going viral. Within a week, I had 100,000 views of that post. So what I found is that people loved hearing about your work experience on LinkedIn. So then I started writing more. And over the course of a year, I now have almost 10,000 friends or network connections on LinkedIn. In May of last year, Zoom actually contacted me on LinkedIn and said, would you be interested in a job? So here's the cool part about this. I didn't come to them looking for the job. They came to me. Why? Because of my post on LinkedIn. I made a lot of posts about Zoom, about tips and tricks. So again, if you want to get a job with a specific business, you could start posting about that on your LinkedIn, and it would be excellent for that because they would see that. I think, in my opinion, LinkedIn is the best resource for finding jobs and helping you get a job. Now, why do I say that? Couple things. LinkedIn tips and tricks. If you want to be a journalist, for example, you could create a simple website or a blog showcasing your articles. This is an ideal way to market yourself online, and you can easily build a basic website in about 20 minutes. And then you can post that website on your LinkedIn profile. Or you could go a step further by offering something fancy like a YouTube video or an online infographic about your experience, and then take that video and post it on your LinkedIn. And now, to Alex's point, when I click on that video and Alex is telling me all about his work experience, then I now know, and I feel like I know who Alex is. I know what he's about, and I know what he is good at. So that would be another good example.
Sir?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Speaking of YouTube, I have my own YouTube channel.
You do?
Yes.
So what do you have on your YouTube channel?
I do toy reviews, video games, VHS and DVD collections, and all kinds of stuff.
So see, Alex just gave an example of things he's good at. He puts it on a channel, and depending on all those things he's good at, let's say he's trying to find a job in doing that type of work, he can say, check out my YouTube videos. He can see, people can see the content that Alex creates. They can see how many views he's getting, and they can see comments that people are writing about his videos. Alex, great example. Thank you for sharing, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mobley.
Yes, sir. So another thing is, by creating this online portfolio, to Alex's point, you'll be able to quickly direct potential employers to your best work and impress them with your skills. You can even then share that directly on your LinkedIn, Facebook, or even Twitter. It's also important to upload your full resume on LinkedIn so that job seekers can find you. Also, LinkedIn and Twitter have vehicles to actively search for jobs. So if you're not already doing this, we really would recommend getting into the habit of searching for vacancies on LinkedIn and Twitter, as well as different job sites. LinkedIn actually has a thing called a job section. It's filled with great opportunities and handy features. For example, they even have some jobs on there that say, apply here, which means all you need to do is send up your resume. On Twitter, for example, you can search for specific hashtags like #NowHiring or #GraduateJobs to see posts that directly to your jobs. Also, you can search for ones that are tailored to a specific industry, like #EngineeringJobs or #MediaCareers. And then lastly, research your potential employer and then join groups related to your work industry. There's no point in keeping all your great ideas to yourself. So on LinkedIn and Facebook, you can easily join groups or pages that are related to your career interests. And some of these groups even post job opportunities and shout outs looking for the new candidates. And that is my, actually, hold on. Yep, that is my last slide. So let me stop sharing and let's go into some Q&A. Any questions that you guys have for me about your elevator pitch, about tips for interviews, about social media, or any question that you'd like to ask me?
No, sir.
All right, Shamari, thank you. Anybody else want to ask any questions?
Afraid not, Mr. Mobley.
Alex asked all his questions. Isabella, Isabel, did you have a question?
Yeah. No, but I'm good. So Austin is my friend at school.
Austin is?
Yeah, Austin's at home.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. Well, Miss Chelsea, go ahead.
So like, there's a lot of students that are kind of confused about, sometimes people say an elevator pitch should be just 30 seconds, or it should go from like quickly from one floor to another. But then I've heard other, sometimes they say it should be longer. So I heard you say on your presentation, it should be about 60 seconds or less. So what do you think is probably like when people make it too short or too long? I mean, what's the general really?
So here would be my advice. And I always use this word, succinct, right? So the word succinct means to the point. I got all the information that I wanted to share with you, and then we're done. That's why I say 30 to 60, because again, I tell you my skills, I tell you my goals, and why I'm the right person for the job. So all of those things only take that amount of time. I've interviewed people where I've asked them a question like, tell me a little bit about yourself, and it goes into like 5 minutes of rambling about every single thing they had to do. When someone does that, the interviewer starts to think, when will this person stop answering the question? And what ends up happening is they stop listening to you. So again, succinct, 30 to 60 seconds, get your point across, get in, get out, but make sure that you give everything that you need. Great point.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you. And I think a lot of times when we were nervous, or students can be nervous, they just kind of tend to keep talking and not being very succinct or concise with their verbiage. So you guys, that's really good advice, because a lot of people do that, whether they're adults or they're young, So.
Absolutely. Well, if there's no other questions, I just wanted to really thank you guys for inviting me here today and let me share a little wisdom with you. And I'll tell you this, looking at your wonderful faces, I know that you're going to do an excellent job because of all the support and all the preparedness that this team is giving you. So make sure you sink it all in or soak it all up. And again, if you ever need my help in any way, I am on LinkedIn. So you can just search my name, Jason Mobley. I'm very easy to talk to. So just send me a message and I'll help you with anything I can. And I hope you have a blessed rest of your session.